Hello YouTube, and for my final video I'm going to talk about the character who I think is most likely, or at least I want the most to show up in Kingdom Hearts 3 with that world. And that character is Bill Cipher from the TV show Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls starts off as a cute show about two twins, Dipper and Maple Pines, in a slightly weird town. They live with their great uncle, or Uncle Stan, in the Mystery Shack. And they have some friends, they have some rivals, and then things get even weirder. The show starts off with Dipper finding a journal, and he also thinks at the same time that Mabel is dating a zombie. The last two most recent episodes involve us watching a character die pretty much on screen as an axe buries itself in his head, fingers twitching as the dead character goes into mud, and then and in the same episode, there is a wall with a bunch of trophies on it from hunting, which chant ancient sins as blood comes from their mouth. Not discolored blood, red blood, although it is dark and a little hard to see. And as the blood comes from their mouth, the skeleton with an axe in its head comes out of the fire, first as a skeleton and then forming into a ghost. And then the most recent episode involves Mabel trying to decide to whether or not to believe her grunkle or her brother about whether or not to shut down a portal which may or may not disclose the world, and their great uncle may not actually be their great uncle, because their great uncle may be dead, but then it turns out he's not. He's actually the person they think is their great uncle. His twin brother has been in an alternate dimension and has not aged. They're going to explain this more in July. Bill Cipher, however, is one of the first characters seen on the show. He's not in the opening sequence, instead he's in the intro. In the intro shows the main characters and Dipper, Mabel, Uncle Stan, an assistant in the Mystery Shack named Suze, Wendy, who also works there, and then at the end there's a quick flash of the Eye of Providence with a top hat, bow tie, arms, legs, and a cane, surrounded by several symbols. And that, without the symbols show up everywhere separately from the Eye of Providence. Both the Eye of Providence in the first season showed up about once an episode. And the Eye of Providence would show up on money, it would show up, not normally where you think of money, it was to show up for the fake money part. It would show up on logos, it showed up on a computer screen once, it was everywhere. And the symbols themselves have since proven to be linked to several characters on the show. Dipper is linked to the pine tree, Mabel is linked to a shooting star, Seuss is linked to a question mark, Grunkle Stan seems to be linked to to kind of a sort of Pac-Man symbol. It's not actually it, but that may end up changing, and because some of the other symbols have since been thrown in quandary since the most recent episode, and there's a tenuous link between Wendy and Ice Bags. Some of the more likely symbols include another character named Gideon, who's a rival of Uncle Stan. He seems to be very clearly linked to a star symbol. There are also cryptograms everywhere in Gravity Falls. Some of them show up in the journal that Dipper has, and some of them show up elsewhere. They start off as being very simple ones, letter ciphers and number ciphers, but the two used most recently for the more complicated end card stuff are the Visionaire cipher, which require a keyword, which, while shown in the episode, is very hard to see, and the combination cipher, which involves several of the ciphers used previously. Now, these cryptograms also showed up in the online games. One of them, Rumble's Revenge, had the cryptogram, when spelled out, we'll figure it out, ended up detailing several plot points, which would show up either later that season or in the second season, with a letter randomly capitalized. If you take the capitalized letters, it spells out "My name is Bill." The cryptogram spelling out "My name is Bill" implies that Bill is responsible for at least some of these cryptograms. The ones at the end cards are divided up into two separate categories. The ones on the black screen are usually a little funnier and refer back to this episode, such as a time travel one, which has the end card cryptogram being not H.G. Wells approved. after that, there's a parchment cipher that uses the combination 1, and those imply that Bill is addressing the audience, or at least someone else. Bill makes his first proper appearance in Dreamscape. Gideon, who wants the Mystery Shack, summons Bill to come out into Stan's mind and get a code that he needs. How can he do this? Because Bill is called in the journals as a dream demon, though he has not called himself that in the show. When Bill shows up, he acts very cheerful and gives Gideon a gift of deer teeth, which he takes from a nearby deer. This kind of freaks Gideon out and kind of gives an idea of what Bill is like. So Bill makes the deal with Gideon. He is not that interested in the beginning, but when Gideon says that Bill will be going after Stan Pines, Bill immediately gets interested. During this sequence, he normally stays yellow, but he does flash occasionally symbols or screens inside him that implies he, as he says, lots of things, or is discussing other things. Which some of the stuff implies that he knows about the future or the truth, because you've got stuff like UFOs mixed in there. But the other thing in there is a shot of a prison which does not show up until the Gravity Falls shorts later, and it's where Gideon ends up. So Bill making this deal knows that it won't pan out for Gideon. He enters the Dreamscape, and Dipper, Mabel, and Suze end up following him. This is where we get the symbols being formally linked, as Bill does not address them as Dipper, Mabel, or Suze. He instead calls them Shooting Star, ? And Pine Tree. So, there's a question about whether or not he knows their names specifically, but he does recognize the symbols are linked to him. Bill is all-powerful in the Dreamscape. It's a question about whether or not he deliberately failed, or even if he knew about the other. There's a plot point going on. Watch the episode and you can figure it out. But when he loses, he ends up fighting with Dipper, Mabel, and Suze, and they don't win. Instead, they put up a good enough fight that he's like, you know what, you deserve to live another day. He shows up again in the episode Sock Opera, where Dipper is seeking a code of his own, and Bill approaches him and says, "Hey, we make a deal. You do me a favor, then I'll give you the code you need." Or he doesn't actually say that. He talks about how it'll give him a hint, which does end up coming true because Dipper makes the deal, but it's a very roundabout way, and not what Dipper wanted in the beginning. And what does the deal involve? It involves Bill ripping Dipper's soul out of his body and then possessing the body, and then putting him through a lot of trouble as Bill is again searching for Dipper's journal. He talks about how it's the only thing that can stop him. And Bill also makes it very clear he's all powerful in the Dreamscape, but to work in the real world, he needs a body. They end up winning at the end. Mabel does, but it's just because in order to make the deal, Bill drove Dipper to exhaustion, and Mabel just kind of ran him out until Bill and Dipper collapsed. But in it, he very easily manipulated both Mabel and Dipper in order to agree to his demands. The only reason his plan failed is he makes a comment about who wouldn't give up something for a dumb sibling. Mabel was going to give up the journal to get her play, and Mabel realized, you know what, Dipper would, and ended up fighting him. As I've mentioned before about the online stuff, but Bill has actually reached beyond the fourth wall a lot. He's very frequent. Like I said, the end titles seem to imply that Bill is talking to either the audience or someone else. He may be aware that he's animated on some extent. He's taken over Alex Hirsch's Twitter and his Reddit account to do an AMA. He has the video games. There's a book release called Dipper and Mabel's Guide to Nonstop Fun, and there are several cryptograms in it, and while some of them do belong to Dipper, there are a good chunk of the ones that talk about the future, which are explicitly written by Bill, and they're talking about the future a lot. Not Northwest Mystery Manor ended up confirming about 5 of them. He can see the future to some extent, but he's not necessarily confirmed to be the big bad. And we don't know what he wants. We don't know what he wants in Gravity Falls, and think about whether he wants to destroy the world or save the world. He implies that the portal that Mabel ends up saving could end up destroying the world. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we don't know whether he's hero, anti-hero, operating in blue and orange morality. And just think about how that could end up in Kingdom Hearts. He could take over the Dive to the Heart, convince Sora or Sora's analog to do something for him, and he's looking for the journals. Once he gets the journals, he could then try to take over Ven. A boss battle against Birth by Sleep Ven with an ultimate set list, and it's just, and Sora dives into him in order to have the battle and the Dive to the Heart in Ven. Or Bill could try to dive. Bill could then take over Sora, and then you're fighting in Ven's body against Sora. And then when you beat Bill, he could be talking to the next villain of the Kingdom Hearts series. And to finish it all off, Alex Hirsch knows about Kingdom Hearts as someone tweeted out to him asking if Bill could get in. And he said that he would put Bill in everything if he could. So again, to kind of wrap all this up because I'm running short on time, Bill Cipher is absolutely terrifying in the Dreamscape in Gravity Falls. May know the future, is very easy and willing to manipulate people to get what he wants, and we don't know what his end goal is, and that can adapt extraordinarily well as a bonus boss in Kingdom Hearts to set up the next act, because he could very easily manipulate everything, including the subtitles. He could end up addressing the audience, say 3 letters back, and then every subtitle for the scenes are something completely different. And then if you translate them, it ends up being a dialogue about something else in Kingdom Hearts, the Dive to the Heart. There's just a lot of different options, and I think Bill would work out very well. Alright, thanks you for listening to this series, and as we're heading closer to E3, I'll probably throw up a couple more videos. Have a nice night.